Living above a magma chamber is not without its hazards, and yet the Afar have done so for generations. Nomadic people from Djibouti have made the unforgiving landscapes at the northern reaches of the Great Rift Valley their home, relying on the same extreme elements that endanger their lives. Decorated British desert explorer Wilfred Thesiger once called it a land of death. National Geographic christened it the cruelest place on earth. Yet for this basin in North Eastern Ethiopia, bordering Eritrea, tens of thousands of families have earned their income and livelihoods from mining one of the most precious commodities: salt. Eking out a living by extracting salt from the mineral-laden lakes that dot the Danakil and transporting it across the desert by camel caravans. Similar to the Kurds, they inhabit an area spanning several countries, yet have no political rights or borders they can call their own. Although these traditional nomadic herders are pastoralists, they are notorious for being fierce, proud, independent, and not exactly hospitable, perhaps mirroring the unforgiving terrain that surrounds them. The Danakil Depression, the source of virtually all salt sold in Ethiopia, is a cocktail of salt flats, volcanoes, sulfur fields, and red rocks. It is synonymous with sweltering heat, where temperatures average 34 degrees Celsius and at times climb to 50 degrees. The salt mines located in Lake Afar, which forms part of the depression, stretch some 60,000 square kilometers and go up to 300 feet below sea level. It is in this sun-baked crust that the salt trade has thrived, passed over from generation to generation for centuries. The salt flats in the Danakil Depression, along the borderline between Ethiopia and Eritrea, are located 100 meters below sea level. This huge salt crust, often up to 1,000 meters thick, goes deep in the Earth's crust. The salt deposits were created when water from the Red Sea flooded the area and then evaporated. The most recent flood was roughly 30,000 years ago. It's here the salt miners break plates of salt out of the ground. The salt trade has weathered the harsh conditions to blossom in a coordinated process that includes 750 officially registered miners, who, on average, extract 1.3 million tons of salt each year. The extraction is laborious and involves breaking the plates of salt from the Earth's crust and then chopping them into large slabs using axes. The workers lift the big slab of salt, which is cut into tiles of standard sizes called ganfur, about 4 kilogram, or gelau, about 8 kilogram, according to their weight. Once stacked, they are now ready for transport, predominantly by donkeys due to the unforgiving terrain of the basin. Approximately 1,000 donkeys and 2,000 camels line up each day at the Depression ready to transport the salt to a commercial town, Berahil, located about 50 miles away, a journey that takes 3 days. At the salt mines, merchants also have to pay salt collection tax before they are allowed to leave. The Danakil Depression lies at the junction of 3 tectonic plates and has a complex geological history. It has developed as a result of Africa and Asia moving apart, causing rifting and volcanic activity. Erosion, inundation by the sea, the rising and falling of the ground have all played their part in the formation of this depression. Sedimentary rocks, such as sandstone and limestone, lie unconformably with basalt, which resulted from extensive lava flows. The land surrounding the Danakil Depression was once part of the Red Sea. While the water is gone, salt remains in extraordinarily large quantities and has proven to be a valuable commodity for locals. In the past, the salt blocks were used all over Ethiopia as money. Although cash has replaced the salt, the trade itself remains the main livelihood of the Ethiopian Afar, and they guard and manage the white gold as their greatest treasure. The trade attracts merchants from across Ethiopia, keen on selling the salt to households and farmers, where the salt provides vital minerals to their livestock, in a country that has the largest population of livestock in Africa. For the salt miners, it is a tough call which sees them waking up at the crack of dawn and traveling up to 2 hours to be at the mines early enough and extract as much as they can before the sun becomes unbearable, a common phenomenon. But for all their efforts, they earn on average 1 birr, the equivalent of 5 US cents, for each salt tile they cut. On average, a miner can cut up to 200 tiles a day. There have also been reports of heat-killing workers, and cited an incident in 2005 when an earthquake split the grounds and swallowed camels and goats in an area that can experience up to 100 quakes a month. But for the Afar people, the white gold trade is one they jealously defend and have always opposed any companies trying to set up shop in the area. When Berhane and Zodu PLC tried to set up base in the area in 2011, the Afar elders vehemently opposed the initiative, forcing the company to fold up and leave. The fear is that outsiders might introduce sophisticated technologies that would extract the salt easily, therefore rendering the Afar out of business. But modernization is slowly penetrating the mines, with trucks now being allowed to ferry the salt as demand soars. It is an uncomfortable compromise the locals have been forced to embrace, at least to increase the volume sold, ultimately improving the lives of the miners and their families. They work in the hottest place on earth and earn not much more than $100 to $200 per month. The locals live a harsh life, probably one of the toughest there is in the world. The process of mining the salt from the Danakil has changed little in the thousands of years. The Afar people are supposed to have been doing it, and with salt being more valuable than gold for much of human history, it is little wonder why they are so fiercely territorial over this incredible natural resource they have available to them. Despite the rapidly rising temperatures and the difficulties of their working conditions, the concentration of the Afar elders never faltered, and their attention to detail was formidable. Telephone and electricity networks have been extended to the town over the past 4 years. A new Barahil Salt Association was established in 2010 to facilitate trade, and a recently built salt store is now the biggest construction in town. Thousands of people benefit from this work, as the salt here is exported throughout the country. For now, tradition and modernity coexist. The organization buys salt from the caravans that make the 4-day trek to the salt flats and back, then sells it to merchants who carry it away by truck. The salt blocks, which were once used as a unit of money, are sold across Ethiopia, many of them to farmers to provide their animals with essential minerals. Ethiopia has the largest livestock population on the African continent. Life is harsh for the thousands of camel herders and salt extractors who use traditional hoes and axes to carve the white gold out of the ground in the Danakil Depression. Many of the salt diggers live in Hamad Ile and hire out their services to different caravans. The work, however exhausting, still draws thousands onto the baking salt flats. Afar women play a central role in the production and household income earning. Besides their contribution to domestic chores, cooking food, fetching water, and taking care of children, they are engaged in milking of small ruminants such as goats, looking after small stock animals in the field, as well as selling some livestock products such as butter. The construction of the traditional mat house, typical of many mobile pastoralists, is also the task of women. Nevertheless, despite their role in reproductive and productive activities, women occupy a marginal social status in Afar society. It is often the case that Afar women do not have full membership rights while their own male children do. For example, women do not have equal rights as their male counterparts with regard to inheritance. They are also less likely to be treated equally before the traditional jurisdiction. Hence, they tend to be submissive and timid. In typical Afar households, men are heads of respective families. Men are generally accepted as an authority figure and have the greatest share of rights over property and children. Household heads also decide on such matters as mobility and sale of livestock. Although household decision-making is often based on subsequent negotiations with women, men have the ultimate say. Livestock may be owned individually, although they are regarded as assets of the entire household. Children have their own livestock. Following birth, a child receives female goats, or a camel to see the luck. This takes place during initiation ceremonies such as circumcision or the tying up of the umbilical cord. If the animal reproduces and survives environmental hazards, the child is considered lucky. Firstborn babies have the advantage of getting more animals. Islam is the predominant religion of the Afar. The Afar is Sunni Muslims, and some follow the practices of the Sufi sect. The practice of Islam is rather unorthodox, particularly among pastoral Afar, in comparison to other groups, for example, the Somali. Islam is believed to have been first introduced into Afar by migrant Arabs as early as the 9th century or earlier.